I don't think that it's just that the British would be defending their own so-called white ways and British Isle against the so-called black ways and the people from the former colonies, because usually people just want to live a normal life, and I remember about British racialism and racism in 1968 April, Enoch Powell's speech, Rivers of Blood. I have read about it because I was born in 1980 and I live in Finland. I've never been to Great Britain. And once he held the speech, it was radioed. He held it in a conservative I don't know what it's called. It was convention, a conservative convention. I know what it's called. And he was speaking about Races and Race Relations Act, and he was speaking about the white British and how the people from the colonies would threaten the white Great Britain. And once he held the speech, there was a rise of racist attacks against immigrants. And one incident was reported as such. A group of 14 youths attacked a questioning from about the questioning that was held by people from the West Indies, that is the Caribbean, probably Jamaicans or such, Caribbeans, Afro-Caribbeans, probably people of color from the West Indies, that's the Caribbean, and that's from South America. And the 14 youth slashed the people in the questioning, and the grandfather had to have lots of stitches in his other eye, and the youths were chanting Powell, Powell, Powell. That was only a day or a few days after the speech that was radioed, The Rivers of Blood by Enoch Powell. And they said, why don't you go back to where you came from, to the questioning audience. And it was a serious incident. It was quite serious violence. And it's not a joke that racism and racialism can bring about serious violence. Sometimes people are even killed. In the end of the 1970s, the questioning incident was in 1968. In the end of the 1970s, a Bangladeshi man was killed by some racists in Great Britain. Lots of people in Great Britain in the 1960s really believed, like Enoch Powell, that the white British were under attack by black immigrants. And the same was in the 1970s and 80s, 90s, and now in the 2000s. And there's a lot of race relations speech, both in the left and right wing. And I think people should be integrated where they live in. In Finland, at least where I live in southwest Finland, we don't have a real problem with immigrants, at least in my hometown, home city. And I live in Salo. And I think people should be left in peace. My wife lives on a street where there lives a lot of immigrants, and we don't have any problems with those people. They're very peaceful, and bigger cities have bigger problems with all races and people. I think most of the problems in my home city come from the people who are so-called Finns. We are Finns and we live in Finland. And we are white Finns and we have problems with white Finns. The black people and the people of color don't cause us that much problems. And my former neighbor has been talking about so-called conspiracy theories, for example about Jim Carrey and Joe Biden being body doubles. She had a YouTube video about it, and she talked about the immigrant problem in other European countries, but they are bigger countries and they have bigger cities and bigger problems. We should really work to have good neighborhoods and good relationships with people. The problems in South Finland and other parts of Finland usually come from intoxicated people who are on drugs and alcohol. And we don't really face a bad immigrant problem in Finland. This is a bit of a periphery in Europe, and not lots of immigrants come here, but there are some, and they usually just sell something.